It's the site of the deadliest hotel fire in U.S. history. Decades after that fateful night, the Winecoff Hotel will practice the very same fire codes it helped summon when it opens its doors and begins a new chapter.
I got a call from a fire marshal in downtown Atlanta who was one of my secret tipsters. He told me, "Scoop, the Winecoff is on fire." I immediately called a yellow cab. The driver said, "Lordy, Lordy, they're jumping out everywhere." I knew then that it was a big story.
Dozens of fire trucks started coming across town, and I knew it had to be something big. I immediately called a taxi, grabbed a brand new camera.
In the cold pre-dawn hours of December 7th, 1946, both men rushed to the corner of Peachtree and Ellis Street. Atlanta's tallest hotel was about to make history for an entirely different reason. The 15-story Winecoff had no fire doors, no sprinklers, no fire escapes, and on that night, it had no vacancies. Its 280 registered guests awoke to a nightmare.
The first alarm came into Atlanta Fire Department headquarters at 3:42 a.m., and the men who arrived within a minute or 30 seconds said the fire was well underway. By 4:02 a.m., the fourth, final, and general alarm went out.
Once that fire got started on the third floor, that stairway became a chimney, and it poured all the smoke just straight up the middle of the hotel. And then the smoke, as it would get to each floor, it would just mushroom out and fill the floors.
Dorothy Moen Cox, a 16-year-old from Columbus, Georgia, was a guest in room 730. She was one of 30 high school students staying in the Winecoff that night. Her daughter remembers her story.
My mother started smelling smoke and heard people screaming, and all my mother remembered doing was just jumping up and immediately running to the window to get some air.
It was a scene of bedlam outside. The Atlanta Fire Department, frankly, was almost helpless. They were overwhelmed. Their fire truck ladders reached only about halfway up the side of the burning hotel.
What I saw was people falling. They would try to climb from one window to the window next to it, clinging just in the grooves in the brick. Most times they would never make it.
She said, "I don't want to burn up. I don't want to burn up." She sat on the edge of a ledge and then just started hanging on with her fingers. And she said, "I hung on for as long as I could. My arms were just so heavy." And she just said a prayer, "God help me," and just let go. She said, "That's all I did was just let go." She said it felt like a feather falling, and that was it. She blacked out.
There was a opening in the roof designed to let smoke out in case of a fire, but it was closed that night. So all the smoke began to pour back down through the building. It met the fire coming up, and there was an explosion at that point, which is known as a flashover fire.
They were leaning out, saying, "Help me, help me," and then they would be forced to jump.
My mother landed on top of the Chandler Shoe Building. The fireman had seen her fall right past him, and thank God he looked down and saw that she landed. And if it weren't for him, she would have bled to death. But he got her up, and they put her in the ambulance to rush her to Grady. She was one of only like 2 survivors of the 7th floor rooms around the hotel. And it was just, and she was just amazed. It was just, amazed that God allowed her to live.
Horrified by the scene unfolding before him, Arnold Hardy realized he was standing in front of the Winecoff with his new camera for a reason, with only one flashbulb left.
Seeing so many people dying, I wanted to take a picture that would rile up the public to where they do something. I had just put a flashbulb in the camera. I heard all the people. I looked up real quick, and here was this woman falling. I fired right away, and the rest is history.
Hardy's single photo summarized the entire tragedy. 119 people died, 62 were injured. The photo was picked up by the Associated Press, making the cover of newspapers across the country, winning a Pulitzer Prize, and galvanizing the public to demand change in fire safety codes.
The Winecoff Hotel was advertised as absolutely fireproof. That was an insurance term that meant that the hotel would not collapse under intense fire, but it did not apply to the contents or the people inside. Absolutely fireproof turned out to be as silly a claim as the Titanic claiming to be unsinkable.
While the origin of the fire remains a mystery, its aftermath immediately helped change fire codes across the country. Meanwhile, families of victims and survivors like Dorothy Moen Cox returned to their homes across the South. For that generation, tragedies like the fire were a closed conversation, the trauma internalized, until the publishing of the book The Winecoff Fire in 1993.
For my mother to read that book was very, very difficult. She only read a few chapters at a time and would have to put it down. She was absolutely amazed at what the other people did to survive. And the more she read the stories in the book about other people, the more she said, "Oh, I think it would be so great if we could have a reunion."
1 year later, survivors, families of victims, firefighters, and witnesses returned to Atlanta for a retelling of their stories and a collective grieving that was long overdue. A year after that, a historic marker honoring the tragedy was erected. Now, after decades of decay, the abandoned building that was once the Winecoff and remains a landmark in building fire safety is experiencing a rebirth. When construction is completed, it will reopen its doors as the new Ellis Hotel.
It's a new day. It's time for a new beginning for that building. These people didn't die in vain. They went through a horrific experience so that we today could be back in that building.
It's one of the reasons that we all are able to go to hotels or other large buildings today and have much better fire safety than those individuals.
Remember the story of the phoenix rising from the ashes? This is one little spot rising from the ashes to become another spot of beauty. And what better way to honor the memory of those who died?
For more on the Winecoff Hotel fire, visit us online at tbsstoryline.com.